Magnus, welcome. How is the body 1 week after your great victory in Ironman South Africa?
Thank you. Yeah, it's okay. I'm still taking it fairly easy, but yeah, I was really sore the day and the 2 days after the race in my legs, like even more sore than I usually am. But I feel like I haven't been as tired uh, fatigue wise. It was just like super sore legs after the race, which is a little bit, we don't really know why. It's worse than usual, but yeah, otherwise, I'm feeling pretty as fresh as I can almost 1 week after. So I'm taking 1 week easy now and then start building up the training and intensity from the beginning of next week.
Great. I spoke to some of your teammates during the live stream, and even people who follow you on a daily basis were surprised to see what kind of shape you have been able to build so early in the season. So is this the fittest you have been in March ever? I know you've also, of course, raced shorter distance, but do you think this is maybe the fittest you've ever been this early?
Yeah, probably. But it's not that we have actually had a pretty big focus on not trying to get too fit too early. So I think it is just more a natural consequence of staying consistent and injury free throughout multiple years now.
Yeah.
So I think it's just like building slowly layer upon layer. So it's not that we have tried to make a specific crazy big peak or have done any altitude or anything. It's just been really solid training, not overdoing it, but still a lot of volume, but no hero sessions or crazy workouts. So it is, yeah, I was a little bit, I've also talked to Jens about it in the lead up, is how great my fitness actually was, given that we really didn't push anything. So I'm hopeful for
Yeah.
for the upcoming season, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
that's great. So talk a little bit about why you and your team chose to race in South Africa, because I know you actually raced there before, I believe, as an age grouper, so you knew the course a little bit. But Ironman Texas was actually the place where you had your Ironman debut a few years ago. You ended up in an epic sprint finish. Also, the race dynamics are slightly different in those two races. So talk a little bit about why you chose South Africa.
Yeah, so it comes down to, I think, the decision of not doing T100 and not doing Roth. That
Yeah.
kind of has opened the possibility for me to do the Pro Series. Still, the biggest goal of my season is the World Championship. So
Hmm.
I'm not going to sacrifice that to chase the Pro Series all around the world if one of the races doesn't go to plan. So it was after I kind of pretty quickly after last season in the Sif and I went on a vacation, and I had a few weeks to think deeply on what really motivated me and what I wanted to do in this series and in this season. And I could feel that it was the World Championships that was really motivated me, and has a special place in my heart. So I quickly decided to make that the main goal of the season, and then to try to combine that with the Pro Series. And then after we have made that decision, it was just a matter of looking in the calendar, seeing what Pro Series races there were, and
Hmm.
South Africa and, as you mentioned, Texas are two obvious ones in the early season if you want to start. You basically have to do one of them if you want to do well in the Pro Series and
Yeah.
not sacrifice your World Championships. So it was between those two, and I think the reason why we chose South Africa was that it was a little bit earlier, and we could see that I was pretty fit very early, so we weren't really afraid that I wasn't going to be ready. So for me, it was just, yeah, and then also the course, I think, is probably suited to me 100%.
Yeah.
With especially how the conditions were on race day. It was like crazy windy and really really rough tarmac. So we would just see people all alone on the bike course. No real group dynamics, which was also a big factor in the decision. We figured that Texas was probably gonna be a big pack dynamics
Yeah.
similar to Kona, and it's of course it would be good training for me, but I just South Africa motivated me a bit more, and it was the timing and the calendar was good, and then the course suited me well, so it
That,
was that's why we ended up going there.
that's perfect. Let's talk a little bit about your your focus on your swim, because as we actually did our last interview, our last conversation, or Kona debrief, we talked about that actually the swim was maybe where you sort of lost the race, and you decided that one of the one of the things that you wanted to do was to hire an extra swim coach. Talk about this focus. Is this guy on deck filming you, or what have you been doing together?
We started working around Christmas, so spend it was on the highest priority of the evaluation Jens and I made after the season was to find someone that could help more frequently with the swim. So I have worked with a really good swim coach up until then, called Bo Jacobsen, which he has basically learned me from not being able to swim 50 meters without breaks to the level I had in Kona last year, which has been a big learning curve, and I think also quite a big achievement actually. You don't see often people that has absolutely no swim background that quickly get uh, to the level I had. So I was pretty satisfied with the work we have done. But he lives in like 2.5 hours away from Copenhagen,
Oh
so
yeah.
he wasn't able to see me only like once every second week. So I felt that we needed to find someone that could see me ideally every day. And that's what we headed out to do. So I tried to talk with a lot of people, and managed to find Stefan, who's former national head coach of Denmark and also Germany swim national team. So he has a huge experience, and started. He has really he's not been in the swimming environment since Pernille Blume won the
Rio.
Olympics. Yeah. So he's had no, actually he was until Tokyo, I think.
Okay.
But then had a short break, and I think he was he has a normal job now, which is really flexible. So
Hmm.
he can see me on a regular basis, multiple. So at the moment, it's been like 4 times a
Okay.
week. He's been seeing me, only focusing on me, which has been extremely helpful. And also, he has had some nice inputs on the way we do the swims and we structure the swim training. So it has been a combination of technical work, of course, but also the way we train in the swim. And even though the result of the swim in South Africa wasn't really it didn't really show improvement, I think the sensations I had, and if I dig a little deeper, it's actually was a pretty decent swim. It was just some really really tough conditions, super choppy swim where you had like Jonas Schomburg and Jamie Riddle and Martin, who is probably three of the best short course guys. They just got a gap immediately and then were gone from there on. And
Yeah.
but managed to swim together with Florian Angert and help him a little bit, try to make the gap to those guys as small as possible. So I think it was actually a pretty good swim for me.
Yeah, exactly. And in transition, there was a bit, chaos. A guy like Leon Xavier, who did a really good race in Kona last year, with an excellent bike run combo, suddenly overtakes you in transition. So, of course, I know you had a plan before the race what to do and to stay patient. But didn't you start to panic just a little bit in transition, seeing these people overtake you?
It was more when I heard that the gap was 2.5 minutes
Yeah.
to the front group. That was, yeah, it was. That is the biggest gap I've ever had in a full distance, I think, to the front.
Hmm.
So that worried me a little bit, but it didn't come as a huge surprise when I saw they just went immediately after, yeah, 100 meters. They were gone. So I figured it would probably be a bit bigger than normal. But yeah, we had a plan already uh, before, yeah, yeah, from the beginning of the race to do the bike a bit more evenly paced than I usually do, to see if, yeah, to see how that would affect the last part of the bike specifically, and also the run. So I tried to stay focused on the task I had ahead, and not really evaluate too much.
And Magnus, what do you do in a situation like this? Because we have seen before that if you really wanted to, you could close that gap within less than 30 kilometers, maybe even 20, I believe. You could easily do that. But when your focus is something else, do you just fuel, or how do you keep your mind busy, so to speak?
Yeah, it's just about being disciplined,
Yeah,
I guess. So just not because it is the easiest thing would be just to let your emotions control what you
yeah.
do and just hammer the first half an hour and close, yeah, a lot of the time in that period, and do, yeah, 400 watts and be completely fried when you
Hmm.
are when you catch them. But this we had, yeah, we also, one of the things I wanted to go into this race with was to be uh, to try some new things
Hmm.
and be curious about that, and see how those things would kind of affect the race. So it was, for me, it was also interesting to try out, and
Yeah,
it was just about sticking to the
yeah.
plan, which I think luckily I'm pretty good at when we have made a plan at sticking to it. But it is of course very tempting to just go
Exactly.
absolutely bananas.
So, Magnus, we talked about your swim being maybe in your professional career some of the furthest you've been behind, but is it also maybe the latest in an Ironman that you have made your move? Because you bridge up around halfway, and then
Yeah.
you just absolutely drill the pedal to the metal between 120 and 130. In those 10 kilometers, you make up 2 minutes and then steady 1 minute for each 10 kilometers until you have, like in T2, 6.5 minutes to the closest competitors. So is that also new?
I think so. Actually, it is probably the latest I've ever caught the front group,
Hmm.
and I mean, I think I managed to catch Martin after just before finishing the first lap, so that's around 60K, and he was kind of the main guy I was worried about.
Yeah,
Then we had Schomburg out in front, which was, to be honest, I think he did an absolutely crazy good race.
yeah,
I
for
had
sure.
expected him to, if people know him and have followed short distance racing, they would have seen that he basically blows up on the run in every race he
Yeah.
does after a few kilometers. So I thought that there was absolutely no way he would be able to finish an Ironman in without blowing up in a similar fashion. So I wasn't too concerned about Jonas being out in front. I knew he was really strong on the bike, and he's a big guy. So I thought the course would probably suit him. So I thought he was overpacing the bike, but he turned out he was really strong. But then, yeah, caught Martin after 60K, and then that was just before the way the wind was blowing was that we had basically had like 25 k's of straight headwind, like also going uphill. So we were doing less than 35 kilometers per hour in that section of the course, which is quite depressing when you are going that slow. And then you had the last 35 k's of the loop. It was 3 loops, so 60 k's one loop, and the last 35 k's of each loop was basically in a massive tailwind. So there we were going closer to 60 kilometers per hour. So caught Martin at just before heading out in the tailwind, or in the headwind, sorry. And then I figured that it would be a stupid idea for me to try to attack going into the headwind and uphill, because he's a smaller guy, so he would probably be climbing pretty well, even though it wasn't like climbed, but it probably suited him a little bit more. And then also into the headwind is really a bad place to put in a surge. I think if the wind is blowing like it did there, then you would be saving like 30 watts or something just by staying at 12 meters. So I did the headwind part just behind him. I don't think he actually noticed that I had closed the gap. So I tried to be a little bit silent and yeah. But then he looked around at one point and saw that I was there, so I couldn't hide anymore. And then a little bit before going into the tailwind, I wanted to put some pressure on so that he got a little bit tired already when we hit the tailwind. And I know that I usually ride really, really well when we are going very fast. So yeah, I attacked in the when we came to the tailwind, and he was able to. It wasn't actually an attack; it was more just went to the front and did the same pace I'd done so far, and he was able to stay with me for a bit, and we caught Schomburg. But I wasn't really like it. I was just doing my own thing, to be honest. So then we went down downhill, a little bit technical downhill, and I saw that I got a gap on them, which surprised me a little bit because I thought they were maybe a bit better than I was on the technical parts. But yeah, then got a gap without really pushing. And then I just decided to now it's time to to put the hammer down. So did the fastest part of the course along the sea really well. And then I had my dear friend Casper standing when we went out onto the last lap, telling me that I had already gained 90 seconds after 10 Ks in the tailwind. And that really
upped it up a notch, or what did you do?
So that really motivated me. Yeah. So I decided to say, okay, now I do the headwind part. Now I have the gap, so now I can just absolutely drill this headwind part and basically decide the race. So I went really hard in the headwind, and at the turnaround point, when we went to each other, I did a measurement on my computer that said that I had already taken out more than 4 minutes. So then, yeah, that was a little bit surprising, but I knew then that I would probably end up with close to 7 minutes lead on the bike. But I pushed the headwind there quite a lot, and it was a nice feeling to be able to push that late in the bike leg. So I think that came down to the pacing of not going really hard in the beginning. That meant that I could really, when I wanted to, after 3 hours, like open up for a new level in the last hour that I haven't had before. So that was super nice coming into transition.
When you run out in a pace like 3:30 or maybe just a little bit more per kilometer, heading for 1:15 half Ironman split, was that always part of a plan? I know you said in the finish line interview that you sort of joked about doing so, but at that point, of course, you couldn't possibly have known that you would have a close to 7 minute lead into T2. So one thing is to joke about doing it another thing is to actually do it. Were no doubts in your mind that was what you were going to execute?
Of course, there are always doubts, but
Yeah.
we actually talked. It wasn't just joking. We talked about it the evening before, Jens, Kasper, and I, that I have been running extremely well in practice, better than I've. Yeah, some of the long tempo runs I've done were really, really, really good,
Mm-hmm.
and like the 1:15 pace in training had been, yeah, very achievable. So we figured that it was a real possibility. If I, of course, if I felt like in Kona, there would be no way to do
Mm-hmm.
it. But if I felt like some of coming off the bike, like I've done in some of the previous full distance races I've done in, we thought it could be possible. And also the reason why I came up with this idea was psychologically to really try to get Martin as demotivated as possible, because I
Yeah.
obviously knew that he was going to do Singapore tomorrow,
Yeah.
and I figured if I come off the bike with a lead and I run the first half marathon, I knew that he was probably going to be running also 1:15,
Yeah.
and I thought if I run the same pace as him the first 21k and he doesn't even gain a second on me, then he will probably start having doubts if he should just dial it back and save some energy for
Yeah.
Singapore. So it was also like a psychological trick to try to make him not give up, but kind of just settle in for
Yeah.
second. I think actually it worked really well. He said that he never really felt that he was in contention to go for the win on the run. So I think it's always yeah, it was a little bit joking, but it was also in all seriousness when we talked about it. And then I just felt really good on the first part
Mm-hmm.
of the run. Not so so good on the second part, but
Yeah.
that's
So
another
you
story.
at the beginning of your career, bonking was an issue for you, and
Mm.
you admitted that. Yeah, I don't know. Was it the last 5 or last 10 kilometers? Maybe you were really, out there.
Yeah.
Not like you were almost passing out, but your pace really dropped off. Were you nervous at any points near the end?
I wasn't nervous. I was just a bit annoyed
Yeah.
actually that I was struggling that bad, because it came kind of out of nowhere. It was a
Hmm.
bit weird sensation. It's not how I have felt in the previous full distance races I've done, so it was a little bit confusing to me what really why I think maybe it was also a little bit psychological when you kind of say to yourself, okay, now you just dial the pace down to and cruise it home. Then in your brain, it's kind of allowing yourself that it has to feel easier. But
Yeah.
running running that pace in the 7 hours into an Ironman will never feel easy. So it was probably also kind of annoying me that it didn't feel as easy as I had hoped when we talked about it the day before. So it was like, yeah, it was a little bit tricky when you say you do the first half in 1:15 and then you just dial the pace down, but because then you allow yourself to go easy, which is a little bit of a downwards spiral. I think that it kind of gives your mind a way to escape the pain, which wasn't really what I was prepared for. I think
Yeah.
it's a little bit hard to. I don't know if it makes sense, but
I think it does absolutely make you actually on our last video, people they comment that they love that you are so good at explaining yourself in very understandable terms. So I don't think you have to worry about that, Magnus. I know that a big part of these early races is to test new equipment, new stuff for your big attack on the World Championship later. Without giving away too much, can you maybe tell a little bit about one or two things that you definitely had to improve to be in contention for the win in Nice?
Yeah, there are many things I, I have to
Yeah.
have to improve. I think overall it was a really good performance, but I have to improve the last 10 kilometers of the race.
Yeah.
They were not good enough, and but okay, that's also only it's very early
Hmm.
in the season, so I think that will probably come with more training volume and more specific.
Exactly.
We didn't do like a lot of specific work, like very long runs and so on. So maybe that's also one reason. So I think yeah, the last 45 minutes of the race, I have to improve if I want to win the World Championships. And then another one is yeah, the swim. I have to be like you're not going to win the World Championships if you are 2.5 minutes down out of the water. So, but I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen in Nice because you have much more depth in the field. So there will be swimmers that can kind of fill out the gaps much more
Yeah.
and probably won't have the same choppy conditions and so on. So, but still, the swim probably have to improve a little bit.
Hmm.
And then equipment wise, we are always working on some new things, but they will not be probably not be shown before the World Championships. So, but I think those two improve the last 45 minutes of the race, and the swim are the main things.
Magnus, can we talk a little bit about how good was actually this performance? Uh, as I said in the beginning, I was chatting to people while the race was on, and we were all very impressed. And the reason why we are so impressed is also maybe because it's not every year that we have a full race. So some of the fastest times there goes all the way back to Ben Hoffman in 2017, I believe. So when you look at your data and how you felt during the entire competition, and you measure with your other early races from past seasons, what is your own take on this level of performance?
I would say it's up there as one of my best
Yeah.
races. It's always difficult to compare. Obviously, you can compare power numbers, but for instance, a course like Roth, uh, it you just pushes you are able to push more power in Roth because the tarmac is much better. It's really difficult to push high power in
Mm.
like when you're going 60 kilometers and the tarmac is kilometers per hour and the tarmac is really rough. So it's hard to compare, but it was definitely below my performance last year in Roth in terms of power on the bike, but it wasn't much. So I think the bike performance was probably similar to that.
Hmm.
Uh, Maybe even in some ways better because I feel I was really, really good at holding my position throughout the entire race, which
Yeah.
is something I've sometimes struggled on in the last hour of the Ironman bike leg is to actually be able to hold the position and not having to break and
Yeah.
stretch and sit in the base bar. And this time I was really good. Like when I pushed the headwind part really hard on the last lap
Mm.
of the bike, I was just really tucked in the position. So I'm
Mm.
really pleased with how I was riding the course and
Mm.
pacing it and how I was holding the position. So I think that was probably some of the best I've done. So the power was a little bit lower, but I think that's natural on a course like that. And then the run first half was yeah the fastest I've ever done, and it wasn't like you could even feel the wind on the run course. So I'm
Yeah.
not sure. It's probably not a fast run course actually.
No, not at
Also,
all.
traditionally before this year, the fastest marathon time there was Ben Hoffman with a 2:42. So
Hmm.
both Martin and I went below that, but it just shows that it's not really a super fast run course. The first half was really, really, yeah, the best I've ever done, and then the second
Mm.
half was a bit off. Probably, yeah, it was promising, I
Yeah.
would say, but still has to improve.
I have a small add-on question to the bike course. You talk about the tarmac there, but also there's the speed bumps. which
Yeah,
can be,
yeah,
yeah, you know,
yeah,
if you go there with plus 50 kilometers per
yeah.
hour, you could easily crash or break something, lose your bottles and what have you.
So as you said, I actually raced here previously when it was
That's
70.3
true.
world,
That's true. Yeah.
and it's funny because the course had actually this year changed to a course that was almost identical to the one we raced back
Wow.
then.
Okay.
It was just the turning point was a little bit closer than at the 70.3 world. So I had an idea of how the course went already
Hmm.
before I came, and I could remember some things. And then Caspar and I arrived 1 week before the race, and Jens arrived a few days before. So Caspar and I managed to do, or I managed to ride the course where he was in the car behind.
Yeah.
We managed to do it in race pace, and so we both got an understanding of how it was.
Yeah.
And then, so I knew the course. I felt that I knew every single speed bump out on the course,
Hmm.
which of course helps. But then I think that's also, it's just one of the things I'm really proud and happy of, is how I managed to eliminate mistakes and never really, yeah, knock on wood, but haven't really had much unlock. Of course, there is always things, but I feel like I'm so consistent in my performances and my
Yeah.
equipment and so on. So that's, yeah, it probably comes down to preparation.
Mm. A very clinical preparation, as they talk about, and I think it's very deserved that you give yourself credit for that, because that's actually maybe the most difficult part about racing, is to race injury free and not get food poison, not crash, and what
Exactly.
have you.
Like that, of course, it's very beautiful when a person wins a race and does a really good performance and so on. But I've really come to admire the persons that are able to perform like Frodo when he was at his top,
Yeah,
like going how many years or races was it without losing?
yeah,
It's just when you think of it, it's absolutely crazy that you can do that in terms of not getting sick, not getting food poisoning in the race week, not having a puncture, not
exactly.
making a single mistake in all those years. So
Yeah.
that's, I think that is something I really think is.
Exactly, Magnus, and we also know that from the tour. We talk about the guy in the yellow jersey. He's seldom the one who crashes, and that can't be.
You can say what you want about Lance Armstrong, but he managed to win 7 Tour de France. That's all an accomplishment in itself, even if you are on doping or not, actually being able not to crash and not to
Exactly.
become sick in such a heavy period of racing and so on.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's that's
so,
that's that's true. One final question, and I have chosen to call it Ironman's Lex Magnus, because they have made in at least in Germany, they have chosen that you can't have stacked bottles between your arms, your cockpit, and what have we. And you have been one of the front movers, one of the guys who really pushed the limits for what is possible when we're talking about bike and aerodynamics. So, have you find new ways to cheat to cheat those guys and their new rules, Magnus,
I
for
think
this season?
it's, as you say, the German triathlon rules are one thing that they are. I almost don't understand them myself, but then uh, Ironman everywhere, like globally, have also changed the rules. So if people saw the bottle setup I had in Kona with 3 bottles behind the saddle, they have now changed the rules. So you're only allowed to have 2 bottles, and they can't be larger than 1 liter. So that is, of course, then I have to change my setup, and you can sit down and wonder why they actually doing it.
Hmm.
Because if I presented the aero tests of that, I can tell them it's maybe 1 watt's different if you have 3 or 2 bottles. And in a race like Kona, it's pretty handy to have. I have a sweat rate of almost 2.5 liters per
Wow.
hour in Kona. So multiply apply that by 4, that gives you 10 liters of liquid that I have to consume on the bike leg. And now the rules are so you are only allowed to have 2 bottles behind. So that's 2 liters and 2 bottles uh, in the, like behind the arms or whatever. So then you are on 4 liters, and then you maybe have half a liter in integrated storage. So then you have to collect more than 5 liters out on the
Exactly.
course.
You can't miss
So
any aid station,
it
basically.
was just for me, to be honest, a little bit.
Yeah.
Why are we not changing the draft rules to 20 meters? Okay, you ban this because it saves me 1 watt, but you don't make the 20-meter draft rule that will probably save some people 50 watts or something like that. So I don't. Of course, it's annoying that I can't have all the hydration I wanted to, but I will find a way to manage that. It's just the focus of. I think we should focus on solving other
Other
problems
issues.
than that. Of course, I am all in for strict rules and operating inside very well written
But they
rules,
have to make
and
sense, right? They have to
but
make
they have,
sense.
yeah, and yeah. I thought it was a bit unnecessary, to be
Yeah.
honest.
But you and your team doesn't bother to write them a letter, write them an email, and make them maybe reconsider. You just find
Oh,
another way.
we have been talking very much to them about
Okay.
not necessarily this rule change, but more trying to get them to understand how big of a difference 12 and 20 meters actually is. So it's more. I
But
would like to promote a different draft rule, for instance. That's more how we would focus.
exactly,
Yeah.
and Magnus, the funny thing is that I saw on I think it was a meme page, maybe was it last week, that they were listing up examples of what happens when a Jan Frodeno, a Ben Canute raise their hands at race briefing. They're actually able to change rules. So top athletes have the ability to change things to the better, and that's obviously also what you have chosen to do, to speak up, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to. I know they are listening and they always want to listen to what the pro athletes have to say. So I try to tell them what I think is right and wrong and what I would like to. They also sometimes ask what we think of certain things. So and then that the draft rule is one thing I would like to see changed, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not the one making the rules, but you can. Yeah, it's just a little bit weird when they then introduce so minor changes to something that doesn't really matter in the big picture, and probably
Exactly.
maybe even uh, makes it more difficult to carry a proper nutrition strategy.
Exactly. Magnus, do you have any minor races before Frankfurt?
Yeah, so in order to do the Pro Series, I also have to do 70.3, ideally to qualify for 70.3 Worlds. So I'm going to do 70.3 St. George in 5 weeks, I think.
Wow.
So
Okay.
a few weeks to prepare for that.
Yeah.
And I've been in St. George 3 times before, I believe. So it's a course I know very well and really like. And it's also the last year of the St. George, so it will never be in there again. So I'm really looking forward
Yeah.
to go there.
To close that chapter with a big haul, Magnus.
Actually, I haven't raced a normal 70.3s. If the TriOracle should know when was the last time Magnus Ditlev did a 70.3 that wasn't the World Championships.
Oh, was it on Danish soil? Maybe.
No,
No. Oh, you put me on the spot here. I
that
should.
was 70.3 in Portugal in 2020,
Was that the strike you when
2021.
you did three
Yes.
races within? Yeah. Okay. So
Isn't it
for people who
crazy
don't
that
know,
it's
when
21?
Magnus really broke through the wall, one of the craziest thing I've ever seen is back to back to back. You raced three different 70.3 races, won them all, and yeah, that
Only
was
two of them, but had a puncture
crash, right?
in the puncture in the second, but I still managed to get on the podium.
Exactly, and that was the year before you switched to the Ironman distance, and the rest is history, as they say.
I just thought it was funny that I haven't done a single 70 point, a normal 70.3 since 2021.
No, that's also quite strange, but it's also tells something about that we are in a time where a lot of new races and formats are going on. So it's just the name of the game, I guess.
Yep.
Magnus, I know you are a busy guy, and to quote the girl playing Snow White, and very evidently so. What's her name? Rachel Ziegler, isn't that her name?
No, probably.
Very evidently so. Thank you so much for taking the time for this debrief, and
Perfect.
stay tuned for much more, folks. Tak, Magnus.
Thank you.
Det er godt. And now, Magnus and I, not together, but separately, are going to watch the finale of 70.3
Oceanside.
Oceanside.